Classically, the problem of evil can be set out as follows. We start with the traditional concept of God, which assigns to him a number of qualities, among which are the following. God is omniscient, all-knowing. God is omnipotent, or all-powerful, and God is perfectly good. If we now add a fourth proposition to this list, we can generate a problem. Evil exists. For if we accept the highly plausible premise that evil and suffering exist, we can ask how that can be given the existence of God as we have defined him above. For if God, number one, knows that evil is occurring, and number two is omnipotent, therefore able to prevent evil, and number three is good, so presumably he wants to prevent evil, how can there be evil at all? It seems as if one of our premises must be false. Think of it as follows. Take a specific instance of suffering. So Daniel is suffering. Now God's all-powerful, so he can prevent Daniel's suffering, and he's all-knowing, so he knows about it. Yet there it is, Daniel is suffering. The only explanation seems to be that he just doesn't care about it. That is, he's not perfectly good. And you can run the argument again using any combination of two qualities to eliminate the third. So God may know about it and want to prevent it. So the fact that it's happening anyway despite this must mean he just can't do anything about it, or he's not omnipotent. The challenge then is whether one can maintain the traditional concept of God in the face of the existence of evil. Philosophers once upon a time saw this as a logical puzzle, thinking there's quite literally a contradiction contained within the four propositions we listed before. The truth, however, is that we do not yet have enough to generate a logical problem. Take the following analogy. A mother allows her son to suffer terribly. She knows that he'll suffer, could prevent him from suffering, and wishes to do so. So she must be evil. Is there a logical contradiction between the suffering of her son and her knowing about this and being a good mother who's able to prevent it? Well, actually, no. Not if her son, say, has cancer, and the only way to cure him is to allow for treatments that will cause him to suffer. Here we seem to have an outweighing good that justifies suffering. The mother has a morally sufficient reason to allow her son to suffer, a reason that would not make us deny that she is good, knowing, and able. So in order to generate a contradiction among the propositions that we listed, we actually need to add the following assumption, that it's logically impossible for God to have a morally sufficient reason for permitting evil and suffering to occur. So for the argument to work, we need to establish that there cannot be some outweighing good that provides a morally sufficient reason for God to allow suffering. This then is the logical problem of evil. Proponents of this version of the problem argue that the propositions God exists and evil exists are logically incompatible. To claim that there is a world in which God exists and evil exists is for them equivalent to saying that John is a married bachelor. It's contradictory. It's literally impossible for them to be true. Now note finally that the problem can be presented as just that, a puzzle that must have a solution, as religious thinkers believe. Or it could be presented as an argument against God's existence. Religious believers who wish to show that one can affirm the existence of the traditional God in the face of evil and suffering produce what are known as theodicies, a word taken from a combination of the Greek words theos, God, and dike, justice. So a theodicy attempts to show that despite evil, God is just, and we'll be looking at a number of theodicies in this week's module.